Hey everyone, welcome back. This is lesson 10, radicals, addition, and subtraction. So the goal of this lesson is going to be kind of to notice some patterns and try to develop rules that we can use to add and subtract radicals. So add and subtract radicals. If you notice, there are two problems here in front of you at the top half of this page. They involve both adding and subtracting, but I want you to really take a few minutes and look at the problem and look at the answer, which is at the bottom right here, and see if you notice anything or if you wonder anything. And you can jot some of those thoughts down in here, but again, I would highly recommend just taking a few minutes and looking it over. I'm going to give you one hint here that might help you figure out how we got 7 radical 5, and I'm just going to draw a number 1 right here in front of the radical 5 that has no coefficient right now. So again, pause the video, take a couple minutes, literally take like 2 or 3 minutes and look at those numbers and look at the answers and see if you can figure out how we got those answers. Because if you can figure it out and you can start to notice some things, it would be super helpful as we move forward. Because again, math is all about not only observing patterns, but being able to describe those patterns. So take a moment and take a look at these problems. Okay, hopefully you did that, and now we're back. So you might have noticed, and I'm going to put in my calculator right next to me, if you notice that these all have radical 5s in them, and my answer had a radical 5 in it, right? That's pretty cool. These have radical 5s, they're all radical 5s, and my answer also has a radical 5 in it. Same thing I notice over here. The problem has all radical 6s, and my answer has a radical 6 in it. So that might be something important. Maybe if I have radical 5s, my answer has a radical 5 in it. If I have radical 6s, my answer has a radical 6 in it. There's also something interesting that you might have noticed if you put some numbers in your calculator. For example, if I put in 1 plus 9 minus 3, I get 7. 1 plus 9 minus 3, I get 7. Just kind of ignoring the radicals for a second. I get 7. And if I do that same thing over here, just take these numbers in the front, 8 minus 5 plus 9, what do I get? Check it out for yourself. Okay. So again, be sure, we just talked about a few of them, be sure to jot down some bullets, some observations that you notice. And again, if you're not sure, you can remember what we just talked about, just go back and replay the video. You can just jot down a couple bullets and just one of the boxes, and that's fine because they're very similar, I think, observations for both boxes. Okay, so after you jotted down your observations from the top, take a look at these two now on the bottom. 3 radical 2 plus radical 8 equals 5 radical 2. Okay, the other one, radical 32 minus radical 18 equals radical 2. Those are a bit more confusing. I'm not too sure what I see, and I'm not sure if I can really make any observations. Well, I can make observations, but I'm not sure if there's any kind of pattern to it. So here I notice, right, you notice that in the problems there are different radicals, right? So that might be one bullet. The radicals are different in the problem and different in the answer. I mean, these two radicals have nothing to do with radical 2. Where'd that come from? Radical 2 and radical 8, all of a sudden it's radical 2. Why did they pick 2 and not 8? So the radicals are definitely different in the problems, and they're different in the answers. And I'm not sure how they got 5 here. You can even jot that down. Not sure how they got the number, because there's 3 here, and technically if there's no number as a coefficient, we're always going to jot down a 1 in there. And same thing for these guys. There's always a coefficient of 1. But right now I don't see anything. Okay. I'm actually going to write down the rules for you, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to show you kind of how these two work by showing you some of the steps in between. So our first 2 examples, if you notice, they had the same radicals. So if you are adding and subtracting the same radicals, right? Very similar to what you had learned last year, like terms. If I have the same radicals, you are just going to add and subtract the coefficients. Just like those problems at the top, right? The coefficient 1 plus 9 minus 3 makes 7. And the other one at the top, 8 minus 5 plus 9 made 12. Well, all I had to do was add the numbers in the front, the coefficients, and then just bring the radical down, right? It has the same radical. But in this examples, on these examples down here, I have different radicals. And obviously, I'm going to have some different steps for that. The first thing I'm going to have to do is you have to simplify first. Once I simplify, then I can add the same radicals or the like radicals. Only. I could add or subtract the like. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. So for example, radical 32. I'm going to do my steps and I'm going to put it in my calculator. 32 divided by x. I'm going to look at my table. And I notice that the radical 16 is the perfect square that goes into radical 32. So I'm going to break 32, 16 times 2. So that's this over here, right? And that ends up simplifying to 4 radical 2. I'm going to do the same thing for 18. 18, I know the perfect square that goes into 18 is 9. And again, 9 times 2 makes 18. So this will simplify to 3 radical 2. Now, can you see how I would get technically a 1 radical 2? 4 minus 3. Now that they are like radicals, I can just add or subtract the coefficients, the numbers in front. 4 minus 3, I get 1. Over here, you don't have to jot this down if you don't have the room. 3 radical 2 is actually already simplified. I cannot simplify 2 anymore. None of my perfect squares will go in evenly. But I can simplify radical 8. And I'm just going to rewrite it as radical 4 times radical 2. Again, a lot of rewriting here. I just rewrote this 3 times, but it's okay. And then this will simplify to 2 radical 2. Now, can you see how I got 5 radical 2? Yes, I just added, now that they're like radicals, I just added the coefficients, the numbers in front. All right, be sure you copy down all these notes and you have the rules at the bottom. Those are super important, and we're going to be using them as soon as you get back in class. Looking forward to seeing you soon.